Ladies, gentlemen, and you beautiful in-betweens, hello and welcome back to Satisfactory. I'm Calmputer, and in the last couple of weeks I've uploaded on a number of time-lapse videos. And every time I do, someone will usually ask me how I got the camera movements to be so fluid over such a long period of time, and where I got the soundtrack from, etc. And I believe I did explain all of this in one of my Let's Play episodes. However, it's like deep in episode 50 or 51, so I don't blame you for not having seen that. And so I figured I should make a separate video about it. You know, just explain my process and the pitfalls and the problems and the frustrations, and there's a lot of frustrations. And yeah, just kind of explain it step by step, how I do it. And yeah, maybe it'll help someone. Maybe someone will start making a mod that makes it easier. I don't know. I can only hope. And so to begin with, you need a second copy of the game, and you need a second computer. Even if you have a second copy of the game, like if you have it on Steam and Epic, you can't really run it on the same computer. It's a resource hog. Like running 2 copies of Minecraft on the same computer, easy. This, not so much. And so, yeah, a second computer is pretty much necessary. On the other hand, if you have a friend that owns the game, maybe they'll be okay with recording while you play, maybe? I don't know. I have it running on my laptop and my main computer, and the main computer is the camera, and then I use the laptop to, like, build things. Because on the laptop I have to play on, like, everything is low detail, because it's not as powerful as the main computer. It doesn't look as good. So, yeah, that's how I do that. Now, going to, oh yeah, there's another reason why you can't use one copy of the game. It's tied to your Epic account name or your Steam account name, and you can't connect to yourself. Like, you can't use your own Epic account to connect to your Epic account. Sorry, stuttering there. It just doesn't work. The game doesn't recognize you as a separate entity. It thinks you're already playing the game, so why would you want to connect, right? So that's a problem. And yeah, let's move on. The other problem is movement. This is way too fast. And there are ways to change the movement speed. And the mod, Pack Utility mod, has done it for flight. So if we use fly, we can like hold down shift to move faster, but this is way too fast. We can actually go to slow flying, but this too is also extremely fast compared to what we need. We need the game to like make a revolution around this in about 3 hours. And with this, it barely takes like 10 minutes. So that's an issue. So how do we fix that? Well, I use a third-party program called, well, reWASD, or REWASD. And then we turn remap on. And then we go into the stick options here, advanced. And I've set it down to here, which is just above the dead zone in the game. Like if I go below this, and then move the stick in-game, I can see it moving like in the menus here, but it won't react when I move here. So just above the dead zone, which is my main gripe. Like, can't we set the dead zone in the game ourselves maybe? But I don't know. And so yeah, just above the dead zone, and then we click apply, go into the game, and now I'm moving the stick. That's not a lot, right? And it's hardly, like, you can't even tell that it's moving. If we go down to the ground again, it should be a little easier to tell that we're moving. Yeah, it's not fast, but it's still way too fast for a time lapse. I want to half this speed, basically. I wanted to make it so that we move, well, the distance we just moved, I want to move that distance over like 10 minutes or so. So yeah, it's still a bit too fast. But it is, like, for a time lapse, it's doable. Like, it's it's a nuisance that it's a little bit too fast for me, but it looks better than moving at this speed at any rate. Anyway, I'm babbling again. Moving on to the actual turning speed. And to do that, oh yes, I did forget to mention, using this, like being able to do this, actually sadly costs money. It's not like a huge amount, and they have been nice enough to make it so that you can choose the different things you want to pay for. So if you want key combos, you have to pay for that. Go to license page for more details. Yeah. And if you just want this, then I think it was like $7, which is a lot, but well, I really wanted it. And also, it is possible there are other ways of doing this that I haven't figured out, but again, I haven't figured them out. So yeah, this is how I'm doing it, and it's not perfect. So yeah. Now, for the actual turning, I'm using something called JoyToKey, where I have set the D-pad on my controller, D-pad left, to move the mouse cursor. Let's see, we can see it a little bit better here. Move left 1 pixel 10 times per second. And we can alter this so that it's like 49 seconds. And if we go into here and press left, excuse me, that's not, oh, yes, okay. Let's see, there we have the cursor. Yeah, it's moving kind of fast, right? And then we go here and set it down to 1 again. There, and 10 times per second. Like, this is where I change the ratio between movement and turning. And this will make it so it's roughly a circle at about this distance from that manufacturer there. So it's roughly a circle around, and it takes about 3 hours to do it. And it's kind of good. And let's see, so that we can actually see the movement. Let's go with this black border there and press left. That's a little fast, right? Must be a bit fast. Well, we can change that by going into these options and controls and turning down mouse sensitivity. Yes, confirm, resume game, and there we go. And now we press the left D-pad. You can hardly see that it's moving. But I mean, now we've actually moved a couple of pixels, right? And yeah, so the way I like fine-tune it is, usually I would go with like 2, but that doubles the speed, which is a little bit too much. So maybe I'll go with like 11 times per second. And you can change it to be like every 1 second instead. That will remove that one though. Or every 2 seconds if you want it real slow. I think you can even do something like 1.5 seconds here. Yes. So that's roughly the, like, I mean, that's exactly the same as saying 30 times per second though. So let's go with 10 here. Yeah, like fine-tuning it is hard there. Also, when you have like mouse sensitivity down to like the lowest, it gets a little frustrating to move around and look around. Thankfully, the right stick on your controller is completely unaffected by sensitivity. Usually that's a problem because I would want it to be like, I would want to be able to change that sensitivity in game. But for this, it's a little bit like it's better. So that's the movement, and I'm gonna go back to about, yeah, whatever. There. Thank you. And move down here again. So that's the movement, and that's the turning. And let's move on to like just general problems with the game now. One, it's not exactly stable, especially if you play it in multiplayer, and we can actually see our little warning here. The amount of bugs and performance issues in multiplayer is higher than in single player. Improvements will release as we continue development. They're not lying about that. And like even in single player, the game usually crashes every 30 to 45 minutes for me. Sometimes I can play for like 2 hours, but it's rare. And when it comes to multiplayer, that goes down to about once every 20 to 30 minutes, roughly. So anytime in a time-lapse video of mine where you see the perspective suddenly change jarringly, that's because the game crashed. And I had to go back to roughly where I was, but not it. I mean, I can't make it perfect because, one, the autosave. I mean, even like, yeah, one of the problems is that usually autosaving is what causes a crash, I found. So anytime I go back into the game and try to load the latest save, it's usually like 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago. And so changing the autosave like time, or let's see, what do they actually call it? Autosave interval. Changing that to like 1 minute, probably not a good idea because it'll mean it'll crash like 10 times more, roughly. Don't check my math on that, actually. So why don't I show you a time-lapse, unedited? And it'll be just like this, the camera running around this at time-lapse speeds, and then we'll see what happens. And there we go. Like I mentioned, every single perspective change in that short time lapse was a crash. And it happens fairly often. Sometimes, like, you can't even play for like 5 minutes until it crashes. So yeah, it's unstable, let's say. And also, like, I kept all of the outtakes in just to make sure that you can tell that it doesn't always go according to plan. For instance, in one of the segments, the D-pad was pressed and I could see the mouse like moving here in the inventory, but it didn't move in-game for some reason. So I had to redo that segment. And yeah, also in terms of speeds, when I started doing time lapses, I think I set it to like 300% or 3 times the normal speed, or normal gameplay speed. And that was just considered way too slow. So I bumped it up to, I think, like 500%. And that was also too slow. So 900. And basically, I just incremented it like that up until 1500% in the refinery, like the massive refinery time lapse. And that was also too slow. So I increased it by 3, so 4500%, and it still kind of felt a little bit slow. So this time lapse right now was 6000%. Basically, every second of time lapse you saw was a minute of gameplay, and every minute of time lapse was an hour of gameplay. So roughly an hour, a little bit more, is what you saw right there. And yeah, I think if the game was more stable, I'd probably want to bump that up to like 9000, but not over it. Yeah, because if I do it right now, it'll just be like a really jarring cut every 15 seconds or so, which is a little bit too often for a time lapse. You want it to be sweeping changes, like, or sweeping camera movements over a long period of time, and not like just chopped up. So yeah. And if we're talking about wish lists, honestly, I would like a mod, like a spectator mod or something, a programmable spectator mod, where I could say, yeah, the coordinates I'm having right now, looking that way, click, save. Oh, let's just remove you for a bit. Click, save, that point right there. And then we move all the way over here. Actually, and this point right here, these coordinates, that like direction, click, and then have like the mod automatically move from that. So like something like this over, I don't know, 5 hours, maybe more. And that would also make it possible to do something like this movement, where you can move over a ridge to reveal something massive being built, maybe. And that's not something I can do right now, because this is just way too fast. It would not look good at all. So yeah, that's a wish list. There was a spectator mod being built back in like 2019, but it hasn't been updated since April 2019, so over a year ago. And the same guy actually made like a programmable cinematic mod, I think he called it, and I'll leave a link in the description for that video he made on YouTube. He never released it and just kind of abandoned it, but if someone could make something like that, I mean, it would be Christmas for me, honestly. And as for the soundtrack, I don't own it. I don't believe there is a soundtrack that you can buy for the game. Instead, what I do is I just record the game, like the game's audio, as well as the video. And usually I'm far enough away from whatever I'm building that the camera doesn't pick up the building effects or the effects of the factory just working. And if I am too close, then I can go into the options, the audio, and then just turn down ambient volume and effects volume. No, not ambient, factory volume. And just keep the music and the ambient. And I mean, usually I don't have to worry about dialogue volume, but maybe sometimes it'll happen, maybe. And then, like, I'll have a video that is several hours long with audio that is also several hours long. And then I just increase the speed of the video, but not the audio. And then I'm left with several hours of just relaxing music and ambient sound effects. And it usually works pretty well. Like, I haven't had any music that felt completely out of place with the time lapse. And if I had, I could have just used the music from one of the other time lapses. So that's how I do that. And like, I kind of wish that they would release a soundtrack. Then again, it would probably end up like having some license issues with YouTube, maybe. So yeah, that's basically everything, I think. Yeah, I don't think I left out any part there. The programs, again, and I'll have links in the description, is reWASD. Again, this bit costs money, which is really kind of scummy of them, but there may be other ways of doing that. Honestly, the best way would be if the pack utility mod lets you set the speed like with an integer, or like if you could do this and then just say there. I mean, anytime you set fly and like anything that isn't slow, fast, or insane, you end up with just medium. Yeah, so if they could like change it so you could set it with an integer, I would love them forever. So yeah, that's one way of doing that. Yeah. So with that, Ladies, gentlemen, and you beautiful in-betweens, I've been Calmputer, this has been Satisfactory, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.